Hey guys, long time no see. I know it's been a while. Some life events had happened and my equipment for YouTube broke all within a pretty close time period. So I had to work on getting brand new equipment for all of that stuff, as well as harnessing the motivation to get back into the YouTube scene after being away for so long. So thank you so much for your patience with me. I really appreciate that. And it's always really nice hearing from you guys, whether it's on YouTube or on Instagram. So thank you so much for all of your feedback and for telling me your stories. It's helped motivate me to get back into the YouTube scene recently and continue sharing my experiences and making these videos. So I appreciate you guys more than I can say. So today I'm going to be picking up where we left off in my last video. This is going to be talking about Delta Airlines training weeks 3 and 4. I will give you all a disclaimer that most of the information during this time, during these couple of weeks, that information is classified to Delta Airlines crew only. So we're prohibited from sharing specific information about this training to civilians or other people in general who don't work for Delta. So I just wanted to let you know about that. I'll be giving you a general overview of the things that we covered, kind of how the weeks went and some things that I experienced, but I will try to make it as entertaining as possible for you as we go along in this video. So for those of you who don't know me, hi, my name's Cassandra. I'm a certified flight instructor, which means that I'm a pilot who teaches other people how to become pilots. Before that, I briefly worked as a flight attendant with Delta Airlines. So whether you're interested in becoming a pilot, a flight attendant, or you're interested in the aviation industry in general, welcome. This channel is for you, and I'm really happy that you're here. So let's get into it. So as a disclaimer, I do want to let you know, and as many of you all who are subscribed to this channel know, that I was a Delta Airlines flight attendant from 2017 to 2018, so that was 4 years ago. So I'm sure some things have changed. I've already been told by a few subscribers that the interview process has changed a little bit, so I can't guarantee that everything that I've experienced during training 4 years ago is going to be exactly the same as it is now. But I hope that you can use this video as a rough outline of what to expect going forward. And in this video, I'm only giving you my experience during that time. All right, so during the third week, we talked about emergency management, which is exactly what it sounds like. So how to handle emergencies safely and effectively. Now, during this week, we also had 3 training modules that were due. The way it usually works is after we learn something, then we'll have a module the next day or 2 days later to review what we've learned and keep that fresh in our memory. So during that week, there were 3 modules that were due. We had a ground training comprehensive from the previous week, from week 2. And then we also had 2 modules that covered emergency management. So again, they use these modules so that way you can review the things that you've learned, and if you don't get an answer quite right, then you can learn from your mistakes. So that way, going forward, when you have your midterms and your final evaluations, it's going to be a lot easier for you to catch your mistakes instead of coasting through without any recognition of errors or misinformation or not quite understanding what you were missing. We were allowed to wear jeans. You know how before we had to be dressed to the nines and we had to wear our dress shoes, we had to wear dress pants, of course our lanyard, our collared shirts. But this week it's a little bit more relaxed. So you can wear jeans and you can also wear sneakers. You still had to wear your collared shirt, of course your lanyard, your Delta jacket. We had to keep our hair nice and neat and away from our faces. So all those same standards still applied. The only difference is we got to wear jeans and we got to wear sneakers, which is way more comfortable. So back to emergency training. Some topics that we covered were things like equipment and what to look for on that equipment, how to use this emergency equipment safely and, again, effectively, and determine if we can even use it. Because like most things, even emergency equipment, it has a lifespan. It has gauges to indicate that it won't be working properly if we do try to utilize it. We learned about the equipment that's used for each specific emergency. So we were trained to spot the emergency and then determine what equipment should be used to remedy each situation. Now, we also learned how to communicate with our crew in the event of an emergency and how to classify each one. We learned about different types of evacuations, if needed, how to report emergencies or incidents on our Sky Pros, so the phones that those flight attendants carry, how to report things on that. And we also learned about decompression procedures. So for those of you who aren't exactly familiar with the concept of decompression or what it means for us, it means that you move from one altitude to another one very suddenly. And so this drop in altitude, or I should say this drop in pressure, it can be physical, or more likely what will happen is we will experience it environmentally. So normally when we're flying on an airliner, we're at about 35,000 feet, but our bodies aren't experiencing it like we're at 35,000 feet. Instead, there's a pressurization system that calibrates the pressure to make it feel as if we are at 8,000 feet, which is a lot easier on our bodies. Now, if this pressurization system were to fail at 35,000 feet, that wouldn't be good for us, because the most important thing that you're going to experience is the lack of oxygen that's now unable to enter your lungs because there isn't enough pressure in the atmosphere for you to inhale and exhale properly. And this is called hypoxic hypoxia. Now, of course, as you can imagine, without enough oxygen going into your body, you're going to pass out. And so we're trained to know for each altitude there is this thing called a time of useful consciousness. That way we have an understanding of how long we're going to be awake and perhaps save ourselves with an oxygen mask, for instance. We also have certain physical procedures that we follow when there is a decompression, how to handle ourselves and also how to handle other people when this happens. We were also taught how this decompression affects us physiologically, specifically in our joints. So the way this would go, once each topic within our emergency management training was covered, we would go from learning this stuff in the classroom and then applying it in the mock-ups. So we would go into the mock-ups, we would prepare for different kinds of emergencies. Our managers would role play. They might pretend that there's some kind of emergency that's happened. And with the equipment that we were trained on, we were required to memorize verbatim, and this is really important, verbatim what we were looking for in order to deem the equipment usable. I can't stress enough how important this is to know. So really make sure with this equipment that you memorize, again, verbatim, how to deem the equipment usable. Next, we have week 4. Now, week 4, we talk about first aid and medical training as well as security. Now, of course, per usual, we had modules that were due from the previous week. Now, of course, the modules never stop, so during the week, you have those modules that ask you to cover the information from the previous week just to keep current and confident about what you learned. Now, for the first aid and medical training, we learned about AEDs, so how to use them, and we were also trained in CPR, both for adults and for infants. The way we were trained in CPR, as you can imagine, we used dummies. So we had a baby dummy, and we also had an adult dummy that had its torso kind of cut off from here, so from the torso up without arms. That's what it looked like. If you've ever seen The Office, if you're a big Office aficionado, there's this one episode with Dwight and the Red Cross, and if you can imagine that dummy from that scene, that's pretty much what the dummies looked like during training with Delta. And of course, we were trained on AEDs, how to operate them when someone was going into cardiac arrest. And then after that, we were put into mock-ups again. Our managers would pretend to have something wrong with them, maybe some medical issue, which we would then have to handle, and we'd handle the situation accordingly with the appropriate equipment. And of course, again, same as week 3 with our emergency equipment, how we were required to memorize verbatim how to deem that the equipment is usable. We had to do the exact same thing, again, verbatim for this first aid and medical equipment. So there is a lot of equipment that we need to memorize. But again, it's important that you know it, and flashcards really help. Those are very useful. I did those myself, and it was a lifesaver. So in these mock-ups, we were required to identify what the medical circumstance or situation was, and then we had to figure out what equipment we were supposed to use for it and deem that it's usable. We were prepared for plenty of things, heart attacks, seizures, allergic reactions, severe bleeding, just you name it, we were trained for it. So then the second half of week 4, we were trained in security. This includes things like human trafficking, self-defense, defense against weaponry, as well as minding your safety when you're off the plane. We discussed how to spot signs of human trafficking, and were even officially, by Delta Airlines, told stories of real-life flight attendants from Delta who spotted the signs and ended up reporting and saving a couple people who were being trafficked. We were also trained on how to diffuse a situation, both emotionally and physically, when a passenger becomes a threat. And we were also taught how to protect ourselves and strategize in order to keep ourselves safe while we were on layovers. And so in terms of protecting ourselves during layovers, you're going to hear from Delta that they recommend that you check under your bed as soon as you check into your hotel, look inside the bathrooms, make sure that everything is safe, no one's hiding in there. They're going to recommend to never go out alone, always go in a group, and to always be looking over your shoulder. Now, I know that it might seem excessive, but you honestly never know. And we actually had a flight attendant who was on a layover in Paris a few years ago while I was on the line. And he was, so I heard, was walking by himself and got jumped in an alley. And unfortunately, he didn't survive. So even though it might sound a little paranoid or overly cautious, there's always a reason to do these things. And there are fewer reasons not to. It was really sad when I heard about what happened to this flight attendant, because as flight attendants, we really are a community. So when there's a loss of somebody, we all feel that to some level, I really think. So if you're in training right now, or if you're hoping to be on the line one day, just be careful when you're on layovers. So after we completed our training and our modules for weeks 3 and 4, so medical, first aid, security, emergency management, we moved on to an overview of Delta Airlines fleet. So all the different aircraft that Delta Airlines has. The last day of week 4 was actually pretty nice though. This was an interesting experience. So the last day on the 4th week, I guess probably to decompress after training from such stressful circumstances, we experienced a domestic customer service demonstration in one of our mock-ups. And in case you're unfamiliar, domestic for Delta Airlines just means that you're traveling within the US. So you can travel from like Philadelphia down to Dallas, just really simple domestic in-house flights. We got to sit in any seat that we liked, and the mock-up felt as if we were in a true Delta Airlines cabin. Some of our managers were in the galley and they were preparing the bev carts. They pushed the bev carts down the aisle and they graciously asked us what we would like to drink, what we'd like to eat. So of course we could get a soda, juice, water, all that good stuff. And then they gave us Biscoff cookies. So we got to experience the service of an ideal Delta Airlines flight attendant, and we're expected to, in the future, replicate the attentiveness, warmth, elegance, and grace these managers displayed. So that about wraps up everything that we covered for weeks 3 and 4. I hope you guys found that interesting, useful. I just hope you liked it. If you have any questions, feel free to comment down below. I appreciate your feedback. I'll do my best to get back to you. And thanks again for being patient with me over these past few months. I really appreciate it. But I am back on the YouTube wagon, and I will see you guys soon. Thanks so much.